All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have it. We have Cam Newton's response to going viral for calling Brock Purdy, among other quarterbacks, a game manager and not difference makers. And so, what Cam Newton does is he responds to all the backlash, tries to clarify his point, all these different types of things. So, I'm going to react to it now, just like we react to the original video. It is actually a longer video, so I'm gonna do it this way. I'm gonna play it, and then we're gonna pause, and then we're just gonna react as he continues to go through this thing. So let's get into it. This is Cam Newton's response to the video that he made, kind of taking shots, is what it's been perceived as, at Brock Purdy, among other quarterbacks. So let's take a listen at what he has to say, and we will react along the way.
Yo, what's good? What's popping? Hey, over the last 24 hours, there's been a lot of people who have had a lot to say about the comments that I made on my sports show, 4th and 1.
True.
Some true, some not so true, some subjective. All of it is still opinionated at the end of the day. I think the thing that I have a problem with is address the point that I made, not me. And I think oftentimes that happens in regards of athletes trying to make their point. It's easy for somebody to say,
move past the outfit for a second. So he's talking about all these NFL game managers. He sounds like the people literally tweeting at me from their basement, like, get back in the like, it's like you are at home.
When he does this podcast or whatever it was, this is just wacky stuff. You know, like this, what, Cam, you know more football than that, right?
It's called Funky Friday. That's his podcast. Because that's absurd. When he said Dak's name, he telling jokes. First of all.
But the first point that I want to make here is this. Identifying the difference between a game manager and
Before he gets into this, I want to talk about the thing that has spun from one of these, his viral take. And, I've seen it in all my comments. When I did my when I did my initial reaction to his video and I broke it all down and gave my perspective on it, not once did I take a shot at Cam, his attire, anything like that. I said, this dude was a former number 1 overall pick. He's played in the league a long time, MVP. He's allowed to have an opinion. Literally said that. Obviously, a lot of the things that have come from this, and you're, again, entitled to have your own opinion. A lot of people have taken shots at him. For me, I was more focused on the substance of what he had to say. I was more focused on what he's about to get into right here. And even so, as he is going to continue to kind of try to clarify what he said a little bit, I still have opinions and thoughts on what he is saying. So let's take a listen as he tries to clarify what he was trying to say about Brock Purdy.
A game changer. Game manager is not a negative connotation. Cam, what do you mean by game manager?
And that's false. That's false. And he knows that. He knows that very well. As someone who was a game changer, Cam Newton was a very dynamic quarterback. He really did a lot of special things in the league when he was playing at his prime. So he knows that there's a negative connotation that is carried by the term game manager. This isn't our first rodeo, Cam, and you know this. And you clarified on that particular initial podcast the negative connotation that is associated with being game manager. So I don't buy that at all. I think that's kind of a cop-out.
My definition of that managing player is a player who has the ability to make the right play at the right time, protecting the football at all costs. There's times in my career where I figured this out. Sometimes, Cam, you don't have to take over a game. Allow other players to do that. If we're getting personal here, there was times in my career where I did it, and there's times in my career where I didn't do it. When I think about ultimate elite game managers, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, game changer and game manager is not something where I'm saying this person is not physically capable of making some great plays. I'm not saying that. Or I am not saying that they're not good players. There's really only 3 to
If you go back and you listen to the way they clarified the distinction of what a game manager was in the initial show, like literally he agreed and doubled down on the fact that game managers are guys that just don't mess up the game. That's literally what he said. So, Cam, come on, man. You said what you said. You can't walk it back now.
Essentially 5 game changers in the NFL right now. Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. Chris Canty, I was listening.
Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Like, I think that those guys are at a pretty high level right now. I think you have other guys that are knocking on that door of his definition of game changer. I think the guys that he mentioned, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, they are elevating their game to be in that category. But I do agree as of right now that those quarterbacks that he listed, those are kind of your top tier. So I would have to say I kind of agree with that at this current state right now. But I also am able to understand that that is evolving and that there are players who are getting closer and closer to be able to be considered in that category. And I think 2 of the guys that he mentioned, Brock and Dak, are 2 of the guys that are knocking at that door. I think the biggest thing for those guys to be considered as that is to be able to do it more consistently. Dak has showed glimpses throughout his career. He just has been inconsistent. And with Brock, he's just new to the party. So people want to see more. So I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I also would say that Brock and Dak are ascending into that category. They're not there yet, but they are ascending.
To what he was having to say, and he used this as an analogy. A game changer is a truck. A game manager is a trailer. A truck pulls a team together and pulls and is the reason why this team is having success. A game manager is merely a trailer that's attached to something to make it go. When I see a guy like Brock Purdy, yes, did he make hell of a throws? Yes. Is he making elite decisions? Yes, but he's putting it in guys like Deebo Samuels and Christian McCaffrey. Like that's the point. When you think about,
is that the point? So again, the point is because he has elite weapons around him, you're discrediting his ability. Because again, a guy like Cam in his MVP year, his leading receiver was Ted Ginn. So maybe that's why he feels that way. Maybe he's like, look what I did my MVP year when I won it. And look what I had. I didn't have anything. You know, he had Greg Olsen at tight end. So the point being is, like, when he uses the trucks and trailer analogy, it's a very, very popular football analogy for quarterbacks. Again, are you the truck or are you the trailer? Are you pulling or are you pushing the team forward? And I think if you ask 49er fans, if you have to compare and contrast to the quarterbacks that have been here prior in Kyle Shanahan's scheme, you would have to say that Brock Purdy is the biggest trailer, the biggest truck that the 49ers have had at the quarterback position out of Jimmy Garoppolo, out of Nick Mullins, out of Brian Hoyer, out of CJ Beathard, out of all the different, throw Trey Lance into the mix. All the quarterbacks that have been here for the San Francisco 49ers, no quarterback has actually pulled the offense along like Brock Purdy. That's the point, is Brock is, he's not going to be your prototypical style athlete like Cam, like Mahomes, or like these other guys, but he is still pulling this team forward. He's not along for the ride, and that's where I disagree with his take in general. And I think this is a perfect example of why I disagree with it, because if you actually watch the tape, you are seeing how Brock Purdy is elevating the scheme and elevating the players around him. Brock is doing very special things. Look at Ayuk. Look at the way Ayuk has come on since Brock Purdy has taken over, even last year. Ayuk has elevated his game because of Brock Purdy. Deebo Samuel went on the Kay Adams show and talked about how defenses have to play the 49ers differently now because they push the ball downfield, opposed to Jimmy Garoppolo. And that changes the way defenses play this offense. And that has to do with Brock. Now, yes, they have a ton of awesome weapons and phenomenal weapons that need to be stopped and definitely deserve the attention, like CMC, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. Yeah, phenomenal. But, Jimmy had those weapons And defenses didn't adjust how they really played against them. They still patrolled the middle of the field. They still walked down safeties. They didn't respect Jimmy Garoppolo's ability to spread the football around and push the ball downfield. Brock Purdy is doing that. Not only is he doing that within structure, he's doing it outside of structure. And so that's where I fundamentally disagree with Cam Newton here. It's like, okay, I totally understand the truck and trailer analogy. Like, I get it. But when you understand what 49er fans have been watching under center for the San Francisco 49ers for the past 7 years, Brock Purdy is the biggest truck we've had at quarterback. And it's you can see him pushing this offense forward. Like, yes, he has phenomenal weapons, but look at all the Hall of Fame quarterbacks throughout history and what kind of weapons they had. Look at the guy right over my shoulder. Joe Montana had the greatest wide receiver of all time. Do we knock Joe Montana because he had the greatest wide receiver of all time? He had John Taylor. He had Dwight Clark. Like, does he get knocked for that? Like, again, I don't agree with Cam's take on knocking guys because they have great weapons. I think that's a really elementary argument that isn't rooted in facts, like he's trying to say. But go on, Cam. Let's hear what else you have to say
about those teams. First thing I think about with the Cowboys is the defense. Is Dak Prescott playing lights out ball right now? Hell yeah. But the first thing I think about is the lights out defense. When I think about the Miami Dolphins, it's Tyreek Hill. It's not Tua. That's not to say Tua's not having a great season. When I think about the 49ers, it's not Brock Purdy. This is Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuels, that unbelievable defensive line. Kyle Shanahan, who's calling his ass off with just putting the schematics in place. These are guys
That's why people are calling you out, Cam. Because that's why you're not watching the games. That's yet again the same argument that I had in my original reaction video still applies after this reaction to you going viral. Is it doesn't sound like you actually watch games. His arguments are surface level. There's actually not real, tangible anything that he uses for his argument. These are the high level 30,000 feet elevation takes that are why he's getting cooked. Again, Cam, like, you are absolutely willing to get on your platform and give your opinion, just like I said on the original video that I made, but doesn't change the fact that what it is being for me to perceive as you're not watching. What you just said is such a elementary take that any Joe Schmo can say what you just said. There's no nuance. There's no statistical reference. There's no film reference. There's no actual any reference. That's why you're getting cooked, Cam. You're just saying things that anyone can say that has zero football knowledge. Anyone who has no football knowledge could say, oh, Brock's having success because he has Kyle Shanahan and elite weapons. Yep, that's true. But just like Cam, there's a lot of nuance to football. And there's a lot of reasons why things happen the way they do. So by you continuing to double down on this take, continues to double down on the fact that you don't watch Brock Purdy. That's the only thing that I could take away from this.
Fuck with. These are people who I respect. Being a game manager is not something that it's a backhanded compliment. A game changer.
100% it was a backhanded compliment. Go back and listen to how you talked about it on your original show, dude. Come on, Cam. Cam, this is exactly what I said the first time. You made it a backhanded compliment. Come on, Cam.
Here's this. As an organization going into the offseason, our main pick or our main emphasis on trying to decide a quarterback is, oh man, we got to go find us another A-Rod. The next Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson. And this may make a lot of people feel a certain type of way, but it's the truth. I don't see people going into the draft as executives of franchises. They don't say, I'm going into the draft to find another Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa. Remove you from that source, and does that team still be successful?
This is a funny reference you make, Cam, because I actually commented on this exact thing earlier this week before your comments became viral, before I even saw them. So it's currently December 15th. This all went viral on Wednesday. So about 2 days ago, this all blew up. On December 11th, this is what I tweeted from my personal account. Patrick Mahomes changed how quarterbacks were evaluated in the draft, and it feels like Brock Purdy is doing the same, but for much different reasons. Cam Newton doesn't understand this clearly by what he just said, because for me, I love the draft. I'm a draft nerd. I have been scouting from my couch for over a decade. And I've been credentialed to the NFL Combine. I've been credentialed to the Senior Bowl. I actually evaluate players. I don't just talk about players. I don't just talk about headlines. And it's a function of the content. But in my core root, as someone who played offensive line, played the game, I love player evaluation. So that is number one at my core of my love of the game. And I just happen to have built an entire platform that covers the entire sport in every aspect of it. The point being is that when I say that, that's because I noticed the trends. There's a reason why Mitch Trubisky went before Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. Is because after the Cap and RG3 era, and you can even say the Cam era, quarterbacks or general managers became weary of the run first perceived type quarterbacks, and they started to go back towards the pocket quarterback. Well, when Mahomes has had the success he had, and then Deshaun Watson had that early success that he had, obviously it's changed a little bit. It re-changed the kind of narrative around going into scouting quarterbacks. They went back to finding the next Patrick Mahomes, finding that dual athlete, finding the Trey Lance, or finding the Justin Fields. Those guys got elevated again because of Patrick Mahomes. Well, the reason why I said the NFL is starting to evaluate quarterbacks differently because of Brock Purdy, just look at last year's draft. Look at Aiden O'Connell, what he just did to the Chargers. 4th round draft pick out of Purdue. Look at guys like Jake Haener that were coming out. They were all compared to one person, Brock Purdy. Let me say that again. When they were coming out of the draft, they were compared to Brock Purdy. And I would say almost all of those guys got bumped up a solid round or two based on what Brock did. And the fact that Brock slid all the way to Mr. Irrelevant and went where he went and is having the success that he has. The reason why I say Brock Purdy is changing how quarterbacks are evaluated, and for much different reasons than Mahomes, is because people and GMs are understanding that, again, one of the most important elements in a quarterback and the success of a quarterback is the intangibles of processing, making good decisions, confidence, leadership qualities, all those different types of things. Brock Purdy has elite intangibles. And that's the thing, is that those were passed over because of his perceived physical measurables and traits. That's why he dropped. And so what Brock is doing by changing, when I say he's changing the evaluation, is that he's put more emphasis for general managers to understand the intangible element better and not pass it over just due to perceived physical limitations. That is what I am saying. And you saw it happen last year, and it's going to continue. Now, you're still going to have your dual threat guys rise up the top. Your Caleb Williams, your Michael Penixes, and those guys are phenomenal players, phenomenal athletes. Those guys look like elite traits, elite measurables. Those guys are going to go at the top of the draft. But where Brock is changing the evaluation are those 6th, seventh, maybe fifth round quarterbacks that would have slid out in previous years because of perceived measurables are getting bumped up the draft because they don't want to be the team that misses out on the next Brock Purdy. Look at what Aiden O'Connell is doing right now for the Raiders, and I believe he was drafted in big part due to the Brock Purdy effect. So I fundamentally disagree with what Cam Newton is saying here. Again, Cam is entitled to his own opinion, but I don't think Cam evaluates draft prospects. And why would he? He doesn't need to. That's not his. He doesn't have a love for. I actually love that. I am passionate about it. I don't think Cam is. And again, that's no problem to him. But he's also speaking on a thing that I don't think he pays all that much attention to. I think you understand my point there.
Most of those players that I named, those teams will still be successful in some way, shape, form. I'm not bashing anybody, but sports media outlets have been doing that for years. Why do you say that, Cam? I'm looking at a guy by the name of Burt Mangus, head guy over at ESPN. Norby Williamson. These people have been at ESPN for 29 years, 38 years, speaking on topics of sports that is dominated by, obviously, athletes. Now let's go into Fox. Undisputed. That's ran by a guy by the name of Eric Shanks and also Charlie Dixon. 29 years, by the way, that he's been there, and Eric, and 8 years with Fox as well, Charlie Dixon. They've been able to identify this merit that when I do it, it's a problem. But when the major networks do it, oh, that's just how it goes. So when I sit up here and I make a bold statement or speak on something which I actually lived, it's like discredited. No, he don't know. He's just mad. No, I'm not going for that. And I'm not going to keep going for that. When you got major networks still talking about a player who hasn't played in roughly 2.5, 3 years. I mean, who's doing that? And you will want the narrative to be, oh, Cam bitter, oh, Cam mad, or Cam hating on Dak, or Cam hating on Brock, or Cam just mad that he not in the. Let's stop that, Lewis, Kimberly, Colin. Like, let's stop that. And most of the people who had their 2 cents to say something about Cam and his outfits and his hats and his ego and his pride are merely just guys or gals and can be and probably will be replaced. Harsh, but it's the truth. People who I've had the utmost respect for that are no longer with major networks.
I understand kind of what he's talking about here when regarding the network thing. If I have to give my 2 cents on the network kind of perspective of this, something tells me that high-level networks are absolutely I'm trying to think of the right word. I don't want to cuss on my show, but they are not particularly thrilled with the rise of independent content. Platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, social media, you do not need a network. You don't need a radio station, a newspaper, or you don't need that. Look at me. I created all of this on my own. I don't need anything. I could literally do this probably for the rest of my life and be fantastic. That's where I'm more looking at, like, maybe why those guys, the high level executives at these multi-billion-dollar companies, are maybe more having an issue with the fact that independent is on the rise and independent is taking over for these old style ways of doing media. They are becoming irrelevant, and that is because of independent media. So I understand that part of it, but the whole notion that, like, he's talking about being bitter and this and that and all, like, that's because that's how it sounded, Cam. That's how it comes across when you don't actually reference any tangible evidence. Like what these are all facts. These are facts. No, nothing you have said is factual. What you have said is from an opinion. You aren't referencing tape. You aren't referencing stats. You aren't doing anything that is actually factual. You are just doing it from your perception, which is fine. You played he played this game. Like he played quarterback. Like he's always going to get a level of respect for playing this game at an extremely high level. You're always going to get, in my opinion, that's why I've never once taken a shot at Cam for his outfits or what. I don't care. What I care about is how I don't feel like he has an informed opinion. And then that is the difference. Everyone can have an opinion, but I don't think his opinion is informed. And that's where I have the issue with what Cam has to say is, again, that was my number one takeaway from my initial reaction video is, do you watch the tape? Because based on what you're saying, it doesn't sound like you watch the tape, which means you have an uninformed opinion. And when it's negative, that's why you come across as a hater. Make sense?
The Sage Steels, the Kerry Champions, the Josina Andersons, the Jalen Roses, the Michael Smiths, the Jamil Hills, the Chris Carters, right? Because respectfully, before Shannon Sharp, there was Chris Carter. You take Stuart Scott off of ESPN, God rest his soul. It's a different show. You take Shannon Sharp, Eric, off of Undisputed, it's a different show. These guys are game changers. The reality of it all is I respect all commentators who has an opinion about a game that they've never played. But my issue comes when I start seeing commentators speak about a person who actually played the game and has his opinion to be had. That's my issue. Here I am, no different than anybody else, that the overarching theme is we all want our opinions to matter or want our opinions to be heard. And that's no different than what I've been able to do with my independently owned IP, 4th and 1, Funky Friday, I Am Iconic Live Tour. This has been the content that has been pushed.
Again, there's a difference between having an informed take and an uninformed take. And the reason why he is receiving backlash is because his take is uninformed. And he's having a really hard time rationalizing that. Him himself being a quarterback in the NFL MVP #1 overall pick automatically puts him at the top level of being able to talk about quarterback play and this sport. But when you're talking about a player like Brock Purdy and you clearly don't watch and you don't bring any actual tangible evidence to back up your take, that is why you sound like a hater, Cam. It has nothing to do with your independent anything. There's a ton of independent creators. You've got former backup quarterbacks, JT O'Sullivan, Chase Daniel, dominating the space on YouTube because they break down the film. They're breaking down the facts. And you know, Cam, more than anyone else in media, that tape doesn't lie. That's the point. Tape doesn't lie. Tape tells you everything you need to know. And when he says these things, that is why I say to him, Cam, you don't watch the tape. Because if you did, you'd have a much different opinion.
In media, let's talk about the LeBron, Dak, the Cams, the Odell, the Roger Federers, the Serena Williams, the Michael Jordans, the Kobes, the this, that. And they don't have nothing to justify that outside of, oh, I have a journalism degree. And I'm not saying that that's an issue. But when a person who actually lived it, prepared for it, played it, did it at a high level, now that's discredited by poking fun at the person himself. Almost to say like, shut the fuck up. You don't know what the hell you talking about. I'm like, hell. I played 11 years in the NFL, a league MVP, Heisman Trophy winner, 5-star athlete coming out of high school. If anybody can talk about this matter, whether right or wrong, it's still subjective and it's still heavily opinionated. Who can? I mean, let's not be no fools here. We're getting information from people who've never played this game. But at the same time, when I sit up here and say, you know what? Let me say something about the state of football right now, in my opinion. My intentions was never to suppress the talent of Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, or Tua Tagovailoa. But the facts are what the facts are. Whether I play another
what facts, Cam? What facts? I again agree 100% with everything you got to say. In the perspective of absolutely, you have every right to talk about football. I just said it. You played at you played at the highest level. You are at the upper echelon of guys who are able to have an authoritative opinion about quarterback play. But the problem is your opinion proves that you aren't watching the game. That is the point, Cam. That is the point. You can have an opinion. You can throw stuff against the wall and see if it sticks. But again, you are proving that you aren't watching the tape. And I never once expected Cam Newton to be that guy. I never once went in to my reaction video or listening to his original take as, oh, I bet Cam's breaking down the film. No, my take was he's not breaking down the film. And that's why people are coming after his take. I agree. I think it's weird. You know, I think it's off-putting that people are attacking his look and like that type of stuff. I have no problem with you disagreeing with his opinion because I fundamentally disagree with what he has to say. But at the end of the day, man, it's just like, I think he's missing it. I think he's missing the point.
Not in the NFL ever again. Trust me. I will be straight. The work has already been done. The proof has been in the pudding. The truth of the matter is this. As I start taking this media space very serious, I can do what you've been able to do, and that's give your opinions about different sports topics. The reality is you couldn't do what I do, or in this case, what I did.
True.
But when I say stuff like that, oh, that's Cam's ego. I'm in a time where I feel more liberated than I've ever have because I have the freedom and I am independent. Awesome. They can't say, oh man, my offensive line sucks. Oh man, I don't have the receiving core. Oh man, I don't get the same push that these particular people do because.
No, what we can say, Cam, is you don't watch the tape.
They have to protect something. Other sources, and I've done that for far too long. Be it sponsorships, protecting organizations, or flat out protecting coaches and players. Now I can really live in my truth and I'm still making money. I'll tell you, come to fellowship, come buy one of these goofy ass hats that you keep talking about. Come watch or subscribe to one of my YouTube channels. Come be a part of, an experience of a lifetime. December 19th, I Am Iconic Live Tour. These are things that Cam Newton is really doing right now without the game of football. And I can honestly tell you this, the game of football has been great to me. And whether I play another down or not, I'm still going to be straight. But I can honestly say, I used the game of football. The game of football didn't use me. One finger, one pinky, one thumb, one love.
Again, if I had to recap everything, obviously I told you in real time as he was kind of talking and going through it, but the main point applies. He's able to have an opinion. Of course, he's able to talk about it. He's at the upper echelon of being able to have an authoritative opinion about the game of football. The problem is if you are at the authoritative level and you have an uninformed take that doesn't reference actual facts, but you say you are referencing facts, that's the problem, right? That's really the fundamental issue with this take, is that obviously as 49er fans, we are going to defend Brock Purdy because we understand how well he's playing right now. And we understand as people who have had the quarterbacks previously under Kyle Shanahan, we are seeing how he is elevating the system, elevating his teammates, and elevating and playing outside of structure at times. So that's why we push back on what Cam's opinion is. And again, Cam doesn't understand apparently that he did one understands that game manager has a negative connotation, but in the initial video, he doubled downs and defines the negative connotation that comes along with what he said. So that's his problem. Like he's not taking accountability for his original take. Like he literally doubled down on the negative connotation that is the game manager. So he And he also said the 49ers aren't winning games because of Brock Purdy. You know what I mean? Like, so that's a problem. Is Cam is looking at this situation from being attacked, I would say, online, you know, people making fun of how he looks and those types of things and how his career ended and stuff like that, which I agree. I'm not a big fan of at all. If you want to talk about his opinion or his take, go for it. That's what this is. That's what the state of media is. We just react to people's opinions and thoughts. So I'm all good with that. I'm not. Again, like I said, I'm not a fan of attacking the guy. But I'm definitely going to bust open that opinion and break it apart. And again, I still disagree with his take on it. I still don't think that he is really understanding the fact that he's coming across as if he doesn't watch. He's saying it's facts, but doesn't bring one fact. He didn't bring one fact to the table to supplement why he believes Brock Purdy's a game manager. So that's the thing. That's why still after this video, long video that he just did, I still don't agree. Still don't agree with what he has to say. I agree with all the other things about, you know, that have bubbled up through this thing, but I still don't fundamentally agree with his original take about Brock Purdy. So that's my take. This was a long video. So if you made it through, this is probably the longest video I've ever posted to the channel. So if you made it through this video, drop a cookie emoji in the chat. Grab your cookies on the way out. This is something we do on our live shows. If you stayed the whole time, grab some cookies, drop them in the chat just to let me know that you watched this whole video. If we see a bunch of cookie emojis, I'm going to be impressed. But let me know what you thought of my opinions of his opinions, his opinions of his opinions, his opinions of everyone else's opinions. We got a lot of opinions, and to his point, everyone is able to have an opinion. So I want to hear your opinions in the comments below. Let me know what you think. This is a long video, but let me know. Appreciate y'all. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.